Good morning, bad news! As of 2025, between 70 and 90% of Americans are living below the real poverty line. That's not a typo. The math that the government uses to calculate the fake poverty line has been intentionally wrong since 1963. So if you've been wondering why you can't afford rent, food, childcare, healthcare, housing, education, and transportation, it's because you are chronically living in poverty spanning multiple generations. The real poverty line for the average American household is between $150,000 and $200,000 a year, while the fake poverty line, as defined by the government, is just $32,150, which isn't poverty but a ghost class, barely kept alive to continue extracting wealth to create a country with the most billionaires in the world, at the same time as the highest infant mortality, medical bankruptcy, incarceration, homelessness, debt, and work hours among industrialized nations, which, by the way, are doing exactly the same kind of exploitation to all of the developing nations on a global scale. So, why is the math so insanely broken? Because in 1963, an economist named Molly Orshansky came up with a quick way to calculate relative poverty: the cost of a household's groceries times 3. That's it! That's the entire poverty line. And it completely ignores rent, childcare, healthcare, housing, education, and transportation. And despite every economist in the world for the next half-century, including Molly Orshansky herself, publicly screaming that this metric was useless, the US government quickly realized that when they weren't secretly invading foreign countries to overthrow democratically elected socialists and replace them with fascist dictatorship, that pretending most people weren't poor meant that they got to spend more money on the military to do that thing I just mentioned. Today, the metric that the US government uses in 2025 to determine whether or not someone is below the poverty line is just the cost of groceries times 3. I swear to God that's true. Look it up. It's insane. And not only that, but the US government has continually weaponized the cultural ramifications of poverty against us, with Ronald Reagan reframing the war on poverty, which was an extension of FDR's Great Society New Deal, into the war on the poor, by claiming that anyone in poverty was a welfare queen living off the government and a failure as a human being, rather than what was really happening under his trickle-down theory: state-sanctioned financial apartheid exploited by the ultra-wealthy power brokers who now openly control the entire government, economy, wages, housing, and yes, the cost of groceries. Intentionally designing a system where productivity has to skyrocket to keep the stock market going up, while real wages have comparatively collapsed, forcing nearly all Americans into lifelong debt via credit cards, car loans, mortgages, student loans, or the forever debt that we don't even call debt, rent, while keeping the overwhelming majority of Americans in an illusory and non-existent quote-unquote middle class, which is just a made-up term for people who are terrified of falling into an intentionally and uniquely hyper-violent and addicted underclass on a pipeline to prison, which, by the way, is another thing almost entirely unique to America. Nearly all other countries take care of people who can't afford food or housing and don't push highly addictive narcotics and private prisons as a profit motive. And all the while, this fake economy dangles stability, ownership, family security, and upward mobility in front of financially abused Americans as a control mechanism to trick you into believing that you're not actually poor, and if you are, it's your fault, forcing you to chase the long outdated and unaffordable future that no longer exists called the American dream. But you can't. The dream is over. Wake up!